to the alarmist notions of the disappearing of all small businesses in Nova Scotia. This is exactly the type of terrifying alarmist propaganda that causes people to hoard their money away and not to spend it. How can we are not looking at the end of the world as we know it, Mr. Speaker. This is simply a poor turn of events in the economic world.
Hear, hear.
The member from Cape Breton South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I'd like to address the comments made by the honourable member from Hants East. So, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member from Hants East obviously also needs a lesson in economics. Mr. Speaker, I've said that the economy goes through periods of boom and bust. That is the natural way that it's supposed to go. But we are in a very unnatural economic climate. We are in an economic climate that was instigated by certain irresponsible individuals. This is not a normal case where we can just let them fail. This is a serious problem where the economy is now in shambles, and it's not normal. This is not natural. That's something he needs to understand. This is not natural. I repeat that again. So, Mr. Speaker, with regard to the comments by the honourable member from Pictou East, the honourable member from, Mr. Speaker, was the gentleman speaking just now from
Eastern Shore.
Oh, my apologies. The honourable member from the Eastern Shore, he said that, and he essentially agrees with me, it's a poor turn of events. It's a poor turn of events. So this is not something natural. This is not something the government can just let it die, because it's not natural. As the member from Eastern Shore said, it's a poor turn of events. It's not the business's fault. And he also talked about how the paranoia, panic, and tragedy will befall our province. That would happen if the government continues with this bill. This government's bill is very gloomy and is saying to businesses, I'm sorry, we can't help you anymore, so goodbye and good luck. That's what the government is essentially saying. And they've been saying that, oh, we've misinterpreted their bill and they're going to have bailouts. But as my colleague from Richmond has pointed out, on the order papers for Bill 341, you have clearly stated all financial aid will be halted. So, and besides, the Minister of Finance did not elaborate on anything, if you ask me. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, maybe we need to apply for funding for the entire Blue Party caucus to be schooled in economics. Thank you.
Thank you. The Speaker would like to remind all members of the House to keep their remarks brief. I now call upon the Honourable Finance Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The opposition seems to have a rather poor opinion of my economic knowledge, which I find quite amusing. And they requested a clear interpretation of this bill. One thing mentioned was fiscal challenges. Fiscal challenges means economy right now is in, as I quote, a very poor turn, a very poor state. It is not instigated by select individuals. It is the result of years of credit inflation in the housing market of the US. It is a basic concept of this economic misfortune, which anyone with any knowledge on the matter should realize. And I would also like to point out, General Motors is closing successful businesses in Nova Scotia because they cannot afford to do that. There is nothing we can do for that. It is extremely unfortunate. And that is certainly one example of why this bill is not as outrageous as you make it seem. We are not simply abandoning these businesses. Therefore, be it resolved, the bill says, for any private business unable to remain operational due to the recent economic downturn. Recent. That does not mean that if there's a business that can prove to us that they've been struggling since March of last year, that we will not provide them financial aid. We will, if they need it. This dramatic decline in September, this is what we are focused on. And the implementation for this bill, it will continue until it has been determined that there has been a reasonable recovery of Nova Scotia's, presumably the global market. When that exactly is cannot be said. Obviously, once this bill is passed, as we hope dearly that it will be, there will be a committee assigned to determine when it would be considered a reasonable recovery. That is all.
Speaker recognizes the member from Cole Harbour Eastern Passage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A better definition of hypocrisy couldn't be found in the dictionary, Mr. Speaker, from what this government is proposing so far. While the honourable member from King South stated that they weren't going to give any bailouts to any companies suffering since September, I'd like the government to refer to their handout that we've been provided and discuss why they bailed out Nova Scotia Crystal. The article is clearly in February of 2009, this present year, after the September. So why does the government feel that they can support their friends and their political allies in Nova Scotia Crystal, but not small business owners that constitute 50% of this province? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from King South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No, the instance of the crystal mine is why we are presenting this bill. It was that mishap where we actually did provide money and it was squandered that we chose to decide to not provide any more bailouts after that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member, or the member from Halifax, Citadel, Sable Island.
Mr. Speaker, I don't understand the government here. We look out west and see other governments doing a similar program as this, not providing capital to troubled businesses. You can look out to Alberta and the oil sands and businesses having to close down and lay off people. And where are they going? All of our citizens that went out west to get into the big booming industry of the oil sands are coming home and they're looking for work. And you've decided that you want to go and take 50% of the businesses in Nova Scotia and decide you're not going to support them, allow them to grow, to hire all this new workforce that's here, but instead you're going to let them all die and let the people that are employed with them and the people coming back not have any jobs. And except now the people here can't go back out west because they're in the same situation as us. Mr. Speaker, I don't know how their conscience can allow them to do this. Let both the people coming back from out west and the people here suffer because they feel they cannot support the mom and pop shops of our province. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable, or the member from Halifax Atlantic.
Mr. Speaker, I'd first like to concur with my counterpart in the Liberal government by saying that this is an unnatural occurrence. This is not your average day on the stock market. A lot of the businesses which will be hurt by this unnatural circumstance are quite valid under normal circumstances. These businesses thrive. And we're going to let these thriving businesses die the first second the economy that no one's specific. This caused this. It was the American housing market. Well, specific people decided to sell packaged American housing loans to other countries, to other people. People invested in those because people were selling them, and it looked like a good idea. Also, she also said something about GM and how we're losing jobs because GM is going under. Well, GM is not a private business in Nova Scotia. It's not small business. GM is a massive corporation. It encompasses all of North America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.